Hey, Danielle.
Hi, Dominic.
How are you?
Great. Happy to be talking to you today.
No kidding. It's been about a month since we did our pre-interview just before Christmas.
Oh, I can't believe it. And the holidays were so blurry. They were
Yeah,
one blurry.
blurry, but blurry in a fast way, not in any other sort of way, right?
Well, fast. And, if I may, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So it was such a fun Christmas with my 3-year-old this year because everything was exciting and real and
Yeah,
very fun.
I love seeing Christmas through the eyes of my kids. My daughter has questions for me about
Uh-huh.
Christmas now. She's 13. And in case people are listening, have kids in the car, I think those are great questions that she has. But she did
Yeah.
wonder why um, we're okay with somebody coming into our house at night.
So great.
I know, I love it. I just love it because all the way up, she's been sort of giving me the sort of rolling her eyes regarding Christmas. But
Of course, of
as
course.
much as she says that she's rolling her, as much as she shows that, she let it go on Christmas Eve.
Yes, I
Anyway,
know.
I wanted to thank you for joining us. As you know, this podcast is for business owners who happen to be carpenters and joiners,
Mhm.
or in the trades in general of cabinetry. And you're not from that industry,
Right.
which is why I have you here.
Awesome.
Do you want to tell us where you come from and what your background is?
Sure will. I'm from more of a contracting, same contracting, but contracting background in HVAC, heating and air conditioning, and plumbing and electrical. So I grew up as a contractor's daughter. My dad started an electrical business when I was 7, and so I remember my first job was going door to door to businesses, passing out a flyer saying, "My daddy just started a business. Here's a flyer," trying to start getting some leads in. That's when I was 7. And then, of course, all throughout high school, I was always running parts to job sites, working inventory in the back. And I thought I was the office manager because I would answer the phone and boss around the other employees, boss's daughter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the beginning. Is I started as a contractor's daughter, and then I actually left the trades for a while and went out and worked in the tech industry in California. I'm from Georgia. Went out to California for 5.5 years, and I went to school in Texas for 4 years. And so in 2011, I made my way back to Georgia because my dad, the contractor that he was, had such great ideas and was such a visionary. He kept calling because we were friends. We kept talking about all these ideas. And finally I said, "Dad, quit calling me with your ideas. You need to be a consultant. You need to get paid what you're worth, and let's start a company." And he says, "Well, I can't do it without you. Let's start a company." And so we started a pricing company in 2011 that helps contractors to determine the price points to help them become more profitable. So as you say, it's business. And that's what we do is we help businesses in their businesses every day.
I love it. And you and I have had some great conversations about this. Today's conversation isn't about HVAC. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about cabinetry. It's not about kitchen cabinet refacing and bathtub refinishing. It's not about that at all. It's about putting systems in place
Mm-hmm.
in our businesses, big or small, to get more effective.
That's right.
When you came to help your dad, what were the first types of systems you started working on with him?
Well, great question. So when I came back in 2011, we started the company that we run now, and we started from the ground up, from the garage, because he did have a skill set and he had knowledge from being a contractor for so long. So he knew he could help other businesses. And the focus we set out to help, the problem we set out to solve, I should say, was the feast and famine in small businesses. We wanted to help make sure that we could talk to any company on a Tuesday and put money in their bank for payroll on a Friday.
Hmm.
We started in the garage, and the first system really wasn't a system. It was, let's use 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and go all around our blank room, and we taped them on the walls. Well, we need a website. Well, we need marketing. Well, we need phones. We need emails. So all around the room, all the things that we thought we needed, we categorized them and taped them on the wall. We didn't even start on an Excel spreadsheet. We started on the wall so we could see it and have visibility. And then we began to add and add to our list and then knock them off one at a time. So then, of course, I don't want to jump too far ahead. By the time we actually started developing a product, which was a pricing system, and we started to sell and gain traction, then we started, of course, over the course of a year and a half, we needed to add to our team. So we added a couple employees before we realized the need for processes and
Mm.
lack of processes in our business. And,
Hmm.
even, from who goes to get the mail, who answers the phone, how do we answer the phone, as a startup, you have to put all of those things in place.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about that because so many of us start our businesses, well, especially in this industry. I will go to the technical side now. You get a couple of contracts. Your mom's friend needs a kitchen. You've got a saw and some equipment in the basement.
Yes.
You start making kitchen cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, somebody might have taken over or bought the business from somebody else, whether it's family or they bought it. And they just get into running the business, but they sometimes don't take that time to do the prep work for the background. I like your example, super simple system. Go into the room, blank sheets of paper on the wall. And so let me understand this. You did headings on the piece of the paper and then you filled in underneath it. If we're going to do great operations, these are the operation steps. And then the next page is sales or manufacturing.
That's exactly what we did. And again, all focused on what we were trying to fix, which was helping the industry to become, well, our industry, helping contractors become more profitable, because we saw that they were going out and they were pricing their work and they were doing it, putting all the pressure on the person who was pricing the work. So whether it was the contractor or whether it was a service technician, in your case, like maybe it was the skilled laborers, the workers were going out and actually pricing the job and then feeling the pressure to sell the job, when that's not why they went into business. They went into business because they wanted to build things, they wanted to fix things, they wanted to help people, they wanted to work with their hands, not sell. And that was the pivotal point of, these people aren't salespeople, and the industry has tried to create them to become salespeople for forever. So we wanted to do a system that would do the selling for them to take that pressure off of them.
Yeah, I like the way you're approaching that, because I think I've seen it in too many cases. So I get phone calls from time to time, and you probably do as well, where an owner will say, look, I'll use the language I hear. Look, my estimators need to do a better job of selling. Can you help? And I think to myself, there's two questions there. Yes, I can help you. Number two, you're trying to milk a chicken, because you're asking your estimators to sell. It's never going to fly. It doesn't matter how good I am as a sales trainer or as an entrepreneur. Those people didn't grow up saying, I want to be a salesperson. They said, I really love building and architecture and lines and drawings and helping people figure out simple creative solutions to, living space problems. That's why they went into the business, and they're estimators now. They didn't go into saying, I want to sell. That's why I say they're trying to milk a chicken.
You're right.
I may have more colorful ways of saying that depending on who's in
the room. I like
it. So those kinds of simple systems, what do you find as a resistance from business owners when you start talking about systems? And they say, look, we're fine. We've been running and I don't know that your system sounds too simple.
Well, whether it's my system or anybody's system, one thing that we find is owners, they know that they need help sometimes, or they know that they maybe need to change. It's the owner of the business that's up late at night, worried about his business, trying to make it run better, trying to make it easier, trying to help his team. And he's the one that's trying to fix these things. And then when he brings new ideas to his technicians or his team members, his employees, they get pushback. Well, we already have systems that are working for us. We don't need to use that. That won't work. This is the way we do it here. Culture. It's a lot of culture pushbacks that we see. So when you're trying to put a new system in place, one thing that we recommend, let's say you want to do whatever, you want to try a new tool, you want to try a new estimating system, say, hey, you know what, get one employee that you know, like, well, you like them, but sometimes, get one that you trust.
Yeah.
Pull aside and say, hey, Tom, I've got this new system or product that I'd like to try, but I'm really not sure if it's going to work or not. Do you mind testing it out for me? Do you mind taking this out on the next job, checking it out and see if it works, and just give me your feedback? And then if it works, let's just try it out a couple more. So you want to get buy-in by one key employee before you roll it out to the whole team.
It's really interesting you say that, because one of the things that I hear, and the way I work with business owners quite often, the door is closed and it's myself and the owner or the partners or the whoever's running the business, the leadership. The door is closed, and so we're speaking a little more openly than we would on the floor. And when I start talking about culture, whether they actually roll their eyes or not, there's this feeling of rolling their eyes, and they're like, here goes Dom on his unicorns and rainbows talk. But culture is so important, and it comes down to actually something you just said. I want to change this, but my guys won't go for it.
Right.
how do you help? I mean, you already gave us one strategy, you know, take one key player on your team, one person you think would take the ball. Are there some other things you've done there to get that system rolling when there's some resistance from the people on the team, but the owner wants change?
Yeah, getting the buy-in from the one is really important. And setting the culture, you can't do it overnight. It's over time. To change the culture, sometimes people have to leave. You know, of course, we want positive people in our companies. And if we have somebody that's very, very, very negative, they might not be the right person on the bus anyway.
Yeah.
But we like to, and I wanted to bring this up anyway, and I think it's a good time to do it. When it comes to your employees and your team, they all have to be held to a standard and to a metric. And of course, that fades over time. So they got hired because you needed help. You needed them to do something, you needed help. And you might have just hired a helper. Over time, maybe they become their own skilled worker so they can go out and they can do jobs on their own. But what's the metric that they're supposed to be held to? And so if they're not reaching the metric or the number, or even if they don't know exactly, maybe they're going out and they're doing jobs, but you want them to do X amount of jobs per week and they're doing way less. It's so important for every employee to know the number that they're responsible for, the number they have to hit, their metric. And if they don't know, it's hard to have a clear culture. So I think it's important, one, to start with, you know, what are my tasks? So something that we do here, especially internally, is we might say, all right, for the next 2 weeks, everybody write down every task that you do today. And it's not because we're trying to micromanage. None of us have time to do that. It's because we want to make sure we're giving you the support that you need to better do your job. Yeah. And so new task that you're going to do today, go ahead and write it down and write down the steps that it takes to do that as well. And this helps in a couple ways. A, it helps you identify how your people are spending their time. But B, it helps you in case that person ever holds you hostage and leaves your company and leaves you in a bind, you can go back and see the steps of what it is that they did. And so having the system of, all right, we're going to spend 2 weeks, the next 2 weeks, we're going to come up with all the processes, really, for lack of a better word, that we do in our company that we don't even know that we do.
Right.
So we're going to do all those, identify them, and then you as the owner can actually turn that into written processes, or you have statements of work, different scopes and things. But I think to get back to your question, which was how do we change the culture, we bring visibility into it. Once we have visibility on this is what you're doing, but this is what you were supposed to be doing, that's where we can start to affect the culture in a positive way. We have to have clarity, and it comes back to clarity.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant and an excellent observation. That's similar to what I have as well. Business owners crave systems. They do. They want to put systems and processes in place. And there's challenges sometimes bringing it to the team. One of the reasons I see, and I have that perspective, right? Because I walk into a business that's already running. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I see is they're trying to push systems on their team, and they haven't shown the team, the rest of the people in the company, that systems are important to the whole company. Mm-hmm. And so what the guys on the floor, I say guys because, you know, when we're talking about technicians, it's quite often men, but they're saying, look, head office or the front office or upstairs, whatever they call it, they don't have their things in order. Again, another phrase I might use in a closed room. They don't have their things in order, and yet they're asking me to make sure that this is how I do my installs, this is how I do my estimates, this, etc. So there's an Australian saying that says, as goes the leader, so goes the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Australian saying is, a fish stinks from the head down.
Wow.
Vern Harnish, who wrote a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, and then he also rewrote Scaling Up. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those two books.
I will be now.
Are you reading that one now?
Oh, no, I will be now.
It's really good. Yeah, they're really powerful books. As goes the leader, so goes the rest of the team. So when we have this culture conversation, if I as the owner, I'm not into systems, if I'm not kind of a geek about it, truly a geek about systems, my team won't be either. They won't crave systems. They won't want to put them in place. And so the responsibility starts with us. Right.
It really does. And you know, when it starts with us and we model that well, it's important to let them know that we really are trying to support our teams. And so now that we have, and again, when we started, we didn't have, now we have a process finder, and I can show it to you. It's actually, well, it's on my desk over there, but it's usually on my bookshelf. And at any time, if somebody interrupts me and walks in just with a random question, 80% of the time I can grab my process finder and say, oh, open it up to that page, tell me the process, read it. what answers that question for you. They don't really interrupting me because we have a process for things. People might ask, well, how do we do this? Well, it's in the process binder. And so once we have that, and I can model that I'm following the process, it's really for everybody's safekeeping and safeguard. It's so that we can have a great environment and not step on each other's toes and to really help each other. And it also empowers them to know that they can go to another employee because it's their job in the process. And they don't have to include management sometimes, and they can solve issues or things on their own. But having an actual process binder, I can't speak highly enough about that. It really has changed the game for us.
So it's funny that you say that, because we call that going from hero to leader.
Okay.
Right? Because you laid out a situation. Somebody comes in the office and has a question for you. Danielle, you're so important. Wink, wink. You're the only person who can answer this question. And so you or me as the leader, we're like, well, they need me to answer this question.
Yes.
As much as I'm thinking, God, let me go, I'm trying to do receivables, or I'm trying to put out this new piece of work, we're there to help. So we become the hero. If we have a process, like you've laid out, you said you have a process binder, which I love, by the way, process flow charts, process binders, those are so powerful. Then we can say to the person, okay, go back and look at the system. But what you said there was really interesting. You didn't answer it, even though you knew the answer. You said, let's go look at the process binder, and then you tell me the answer.
Right.
So if you tell me that, Danielle, if you manage me that way, I'm not walking into your office the second time. I might come in and go, hey, can I borrow that process binder you've got just for flip, 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 flip? What do we do? Okay, oh, it's here. Okay, never mind. And then I put it back, and you kind of smile and keep doing your work, and stop interrupting me during the day.
And every one of our team members has that process binder on their desk. And so they don't even have to come into my office to get it. I love how you said hero to leader, because I know I fall into that category of I always want to be the hero. I mean, we do. We naturally we want to be needed.
Yes. I'm so smart and tall and everything. Why wouldn't you ask me?
I know. But if we really want to keep the best interests of the company stamped on our forehead, if we want our companies to be able to grow to the maturity level that they can to reach their potential, we have to be leaders. And leadership isn't natural for all of us. Management is not natural for all of us. It's not natural for me at all. I've had to really work to get into that role and to let go of the feeling like a hero. Because when we're trying to feel like a hero, really we're just putting out fires and we're being firemen, which real firemen are wonderful. But in our business, trying to be a fireman in our own businesses, in our offices, we're pulling away from the strategy of where the company's trying to go.
Right. Yeah.
And let's say you're a smaller business. So let's say you're 500,000 to 1.5 million, and you're trying to get to your 2 million and your 3 million, and you want to go to those next levels. You cannot scale without the processes in place that free up your time to move the company forward.
Right. You're so right on that. It is, when people talk about the next level, so they might say, Danielle, we really want to get to the next level. Can you help us get to the next level? If you think about that sentence, it doesn't mean anything. What do you mean the next level? But what you and I are talking about here is if you're already, just say a $1 million business, as an example, then you've done a great job, by the way. Being a $1 million business means you've figured out through your own wits and determination how to get $85,000 a month into your business. That's massive.
Crazy.
So
yes.
And then they say, hey, I think I want to get bigger. I want to go to the next level. But you can't do it without different systems. You're the perfect $1 million business, but you're not the perfect 1.2, 1.3. And if you want to be that, you have to change who you are and how you do things. No different for me than it is for you. I've now built 2 businesses, multinational businesses with, they're big. And in each of them, we have to think about, I have to challenge my team to say, look, if we're $1 million today, that's great. But how would a $2 million company act? And we have to start acting like that before we get there.
Oh, that's excellent.
Right?
That's excellent. Something too, just for the audience sake, there's a lot of guys that are, what we call them one-man trucks. And so it's somebody that knows how to fix things, knows how to install cabinets, knows how to turn wrenches. And so they are working and they decide, hey, I'm going to go into business for myself. And then all of a sudden they start running their own calls and doing their own builds, and they're doing it. And them as the technician per se, they can actually make a lot of money. They're out in the truck, they're doing it, because that's what they do. But then the minute that they get out of the truck and they get into the business and they're trying to get their team to make as much money as they did, revenues historically go down. And so it costs more money for them to actually be in the business and try to run the business. And then because they weren't traditionally a business person, they have to learn from the bottom up how to be a great manager and how to be, a business person that's casting the vision for the future and moving it forward. And so just not trying to beat a dead horse, but going back to the importance of the processes is so vital right there that, hey, I'm going to step out of the truck and be in the business. And so, all right, the next question that somebody asks me, that's the thing I'm going to write a process for.
Right. Let me ask you this. One of the places, so I'm going to ask you your opinion, just my soul open to you. One of the places that I get my clients to start with when they're trying to get systems in place, when they're trying to move from a reactive, being a reactive company to a proactive one, is I'll ask them to write something called a operations flow chart. And so in my business, it's a manufacturing operations flow chart. So the first bit of it is in the office, where it's estimating, bidding, quoting, tendering, whatever it's called. Nesting plans for the CNC is something in our industry. So that's all in the office. Then once the plans are nested, they get sent to the floor, whether that's manufacturing floor. That next part all happens on the floor. And then the final part of the flow chart, for those of you who can't see me, I'm using my hands like a true Italian on the video. The final part is in the office again, where we're doing, accounts receivable, managing change orders, doing final billing, making sure that our accounts receivable and accounts payable are lined up on some of our suppliers. The first thing I get them to do is write out this manufacturing operations flow chart. I've got my heart on the line here. Tell me, what's your thought, systems expert? Is that a strong place to start, or is there a better place to start?
Oh, I love it. I love it because I'm that way too. I love to go to the whiteboard and I want to see the whole operation, not necessarily step by step in detail, but the whole blueprint of what it is. And so then when we have it all out there, you have your whole operations scope, then we can go into each part and find the holes in that bucket, in that part. We can dive through. So when it comes to what we would suggest for even processes for that whole thing that you just laid out is not one process. That's many processes.
Oh, many. Yeah.
That's many. There might be a checklist that kind of goes through each one, but there's going to be a process for each area and each person that touches it. But I would agree with you. I like to see the whole thing up front and then dive in. An example for that I've had to really work on this past year is my sales process, because you take a look at, and this is for all of us business owners, we have to have leads coming in. And then once the leads coming in, well, A, where did they come from? Where did the leads come from? How did they get into your bucket? And then when they're in the bucket, where do they go? Do they go into your CRM system? Do they get emailed something automatically? Is this manual? Who calls the follow up? Who sends the thank you? What's the 7-touch process that we're going to try to do to secure, turn them into a customer sale? And so all of that gets broken down, but it starts on the whiteboard and it comes from the whole operational picture, to your point. But just the sales process, that's one segment, and we do have to dive down deep. But I love it. You have to have the whole picture first.
Yeah. When you don't have the reason behind the flow chart is the reason that we talk a funny language when we go to Starbucks or Dunkin' or in Canada, Tim's, right? They've trained us to use a certain language so that first it's cool and it's their language, but also they know how to build the coffee the way we want it.
Yes.
So when we're in leadership position, we want two things from our team. We want accountability and communication. And those two things go hand in hand. So in order to have that communication, we have to talk the same language. And when we have the manufacturing operations flowchart, as boring as it sounds, it's the same language, because we'll be talking about between step 2 and 3, whatever they might be. And they're just boxes on a flowchart at this point. But if we're not having that same language conversation about those two boxes and the space in between, we're never going to get anything solved. So we can delegate something to say, okay, Danielle, can you go do this about this gap we've got between box 2 and 3? We both know what we're talking about, and things get done.
Right. I love it.
Right. So there's feedback loops there, but we have to, I agree with you. And the system side is we have to make it simple and easy and a little bit at a time.
We do. A little bit of time is key, because we can't do it overnight. And the minute we try, it's so overwhelming, we don't do anything. And so knowing Manageable bites, one thing at a time, over time, not overnight.
So I just had a coaching session by conference call before this podcast. And they're a relatively new client. So I said, hey guys, how are things going? And what's the pace like? And the people in this industry are straight shooters, which I love. And you deal with tradespeople too, right? They just tell you how things happen. Or as the Texans say, how do you tell a neighbor that your cow ate their cabbage? Well, you went to school in Texas, right? You just go to your neighbor and say, hey, my cow ate your cabbage. Like, they're just straight shooters. I love it. So my client's talking to me today, and he goes, well, actually, Dom, about 70% of what you're talking about, we already know. We've just never stopped and put it in place.
Wow.
I know. I didn't think I was that dumb. But it's true, right? We all know what to do, but we're not, as owners, allowing ourselves to slow down and focus on just do one thing and then another thing. It just like hit singles every week. We don't have to hit home runs.
Yes, but you know what? That's why what you're doing and coaching with them is so important, because of the accountability. So you're reminding them what they already know. Okay, great. But also you're bringing the accountability into play and the red light. Hey guys, there's a problem. You may know this, but you're not doing anything about it. And it's my job to help you.
Yeah. So when we're talking to leaders here, business leaders, it sounds like the thing that you and I are agreeing on is the importance for systems. But you've got a real focus on simple systems, like these papers on the wall and easy conversation. Choose your one hero, your one leader inside. Let's go to the negative side for a second. When you see it not working, what are people doing wrong to make systems fall apart?
Such a great question. I love that you brought that up, because we're dealing with that right now. It's such a live topic for me, because something that we tell our teams here internally is write a system. Even if it's wrong, write the system, and then we can correct it along the way. So that's one thing, is you don't have the system, then you can't correct it. But it's way easier to edit something that's drafted than to start from scratch. So let's get a system in place, and then as we go, we realize, oh, that's not working. We can adjust it. No big deal. That's easier than not having one. So that was my point one. Point two is, let's say you've had a system in place for a year or whatever length of time. When do you go back and audit to see, are those systems actually working? So on the negative side is, you could have systems in place that you forgot about and people are doing them and they're doing their processes. But if you as management don't go take a look at the processes that they're doing, information changes, technology changes, tools, vendors, relationships, it all changes. So we have to go back and review every once in a while the processes we have in place to again course correct. It's always course correction all the time.
Yeah. It's a series of small adjustments, isn't it? I mean, making a business work better is it's truly managing the business. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just moving us forward, but assuming that it's always going to work the same way.
Yes. There's a vendor partner that we do some business with, but we recently stopped doing business with them, and not my whole team didn't know that. And so I overheard one of my team members the other day saying, oh, this is the only company we recommend. And I thought, we never recommend them anymore. Never. And it's just going back down to make sure that we're communicating among our whole team, all the ranks, and adjusting the processes.
Yeah. So communication. I think one of the challenges is the type of leadership that we have in our leader positions, because some of us are silent leaders. We're not communicators. They're listening to you and I talking right now, and they're like, oh, these guys just keep talking. Well, and that's fair. There's some people who are like that, and there's other people who talk without necessarily a reason or a purpose. And in those companies, they can get frustrated because they might have meetings, but they go nowhere. The meeting goes nowhere. What do you have for tips for us for managing a meeting as a business owner?
Well, I do have a comment on that. I love that. Number one, you never have a meeting without a decision. So meetings are decision making. So if we're going to have a meeting, we're going to make a decision. We keep out the noise. Meetings are not for, everything else that's going on. They're for a purpose. We keep it on target. You always have an agenda. You always have a note taker, and the note taker takes notes and then puts down the action steps too. And do we need meetings? Yes. You'll hear people say, oh, death by meeting, that company, that culture, they have meetings all the time. But something in the trades that's so important, the lack of meetings and the lack of consistent meetings, it's so important to change that culture. And we highly, highly, highly suggest if you're not meeting with your teams, even if they just drive to the job site, you have a cabinet install going on next week or whatever, and the guys just drive directly there. You need to even if it's for a week or it needs to be longer than a week. Let's say for a month at a time, every single morning at 7 a.m., you guys meet at the shop and you're going to have a meeting. And in that meeting, it might just be 15 minutes long. It might be 5 minutes of what we call tech talk. And that tech talk might be one of your cabinet makers or your metal workers saying, hey, here's a new tip, a new piece of equipment or a new tool that I've been using lately. This is how it works. It's something that I've found to be more efficient. So they might share that. And then you might have 5 minutes of Q&A. And then you might have 5 minutes of the manager just giving updates. But the importance of that for training to make sure that we're all on the same page, it's incredible what it'll do. We do that here in the office every day. Every day at 8 a.m., my team meets and it's a stand-up meeting. And we go through our top 3 priorities of the day.
Right.
And we keep out the noise, no sarcasm. We're not allowed to joke around and say anything negative. I know that's hard for some people, but no sarcasm in the meeting. If you have a relationship with somebody where you can be sarcastic, you can do that outside of the meeting. But other people might take that wrong and might not understand your relationship with that person. So during the meeting, we stay on point. There's always a start time, we start on time, and there's an end time so that they don't continue on throughout the day. But what we do is everybody has to come and have their priorities in the projects they're working on and talk about the top 3. And they just go through and say what they're going to do to help move the company forward today.
Right.
But those guys are in the office. So for the guys that are out in the field, it's incredible. And I'm going to throw this number out here because I really believe it's a very true number that 95% of the tradespeople are not meeting with their techs and their teams on a continual, consistent basis. 95%. Right. And I just know that from the ones that we work with. About 5% will do ride-alongs and be meeting with them. About 95% are not. So we assume that they're following, a good example is how much excellence. We want to be excellent and we want to be known as the premier craftsman in our area. But if we're not training and riding along and having meetings with our guys, then how can we uphold that standard?
Right.
That's one question, and I opened up a fire hose.
Clearly you have passion around this. And I agree with you. I liked a bunch of things you said. And the first one I wrote down from what you said is meetings are for decision making. Mm-hmm. They're not for chatting. And that's where people get frustrated. Meetings are really important. Remember I said earlier, communications and accountability are the keys to management, right? So we have to know what everybody's job is and what their role is and what their output needs to be, including me, by the way. I have to have clear inputs and outputs. But then we have to have decisions at the end of these meetings. They can't just be long, wandering discussions where people are complaining about things. Not that we don't want to hear the complaints. It just has to be delivered in a way that it gets captured and then we deal with it later, not in the meeting.
Yes.
Well, I think you and I have the makings of maybe another podcast episode in the future.
Oh, wow. I would love it.
If somebody let's talk a little bit about what you do at Flat Rate Pricing, because I haven't given people a real sense of the scope of what you do. Let's do that, and maybe let us know how we can get in touch with you, and then we'll see if there's any questions from there too.
Okay, great. Hey, I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate you asking, but my company's called The New Flat Rate. It's at thenewflatrate.com, and it's menu pricing. So when we go into the homes, primarily heating and air conditioning, electrical and plumbing, if a technician or contractor is going to give an estimate for service repair or equipment replacement, traditionally there was time and material to price the project or flat rate pricing. Flat rate pricing came about and it did help people to make more money, but then it started to pressure the technicians to look for other things to sell the customer and upsell. Well, we know that the technicians don't want to do that. That's not their core DNA. And so our system is a menu pricing system. We have developed thousands of menus and we have 5 price points for any service and repair in those 3 trades that are going to happen in the home. Oh. So if a technician walks into the home and let's say, Dominic, you need a new water heater today, he'd just show you the menu. We have a software program. It's in an app. So he'd walk through, pull up a water heater page and say, okay, Dominic, I've got some options for you. Now, my top option is going to be my permanent. Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that script. Top options, well, my best. Let me I have a whole script for it and I'm going blank. Top option is my best. And I have other options though, because my top option is X amount. You tell them how much money it is. But I do have other options. What should we do? You show the menu page to the customer and the customer chooses the 5 price points and selects based on their budget, because the importance here, that's how consumers now buy. So when we go to McDonald's, we walk in, we take a look at the menu, and we say, okay, we want a burger and we want fries and a drink with that. We might want a bigger burger and an even better burger or a milkshake, whatever we want. But we make a decision in a couple seconds, and we didn't get anybody to pressure us to make that decision. We just bought off the menu what we wanted. So that's what our system does, is it brings that into the home. So for your audience, if they want to start making more money on their projects, even if they start out by quoting the job, taking a look, and then instead of writing, Mr. Customer, it's going to be $15,000 for your new kitchen cabinet, instead give 3 options. For example, $15,000, that's a great place. But what else could we do? What if we added some more premier pieces and some better wood or something? Could we have a $15,000 level? Could we have a $25,000 level? What could we do? And so when you give at least even 3 price points, it gives you the opportunity, no pressure, the customer can choose it or not. But what happens if the customer does move up? All of a sudden, your average ticket just went up. You made more money. It didn't take you any more time to do it. And the customer's happy because they got what they wanted. You're happy because you made more money. And it's a win-win for everybody, and you didn't have to pressure them. You simply gave them more options. So that's what we do on a day-to-day basis here at the office.
That's fantastic. In this audience here, we've really got a kind of a split between architectural millworkers, or people that answer bids. So request for information, RFI, RFQ, RFP, things like that. They don't have as much of an opportunity for that.
Okay.
And the other listeners that we have who deal with the more residential side, or the just a different scope of work. And so what we work with them to do is good, better, best pricing.
Yes.
So if we have those good, better, bests, and you laid it out perfectly, do you have any metrics or statistics or even anecdotes of which one gets chosen more? Is it the good, the better, or the best? And that would be, good would be the lowest price, better would be a little bit better price, and then best would be more premium. Which one do people usually go for?
Well, great question. When you go to the store to buy a new pair of shoes, are you buying the cheapest pair, or are you buying the more expensive, or are you buying in the middle?
Yeah, you're right. I buy in the middle.
Right. That's how you buy. And so often customers say, oh, I want the middle option because I always buy in the middle. Or they'll say, I want the top option because I'm a premium buyer. I always buy up top. And so we find that 80% of the time customers choose higher than the bottom option.
They choose the higher ones 80% of the time.
80% of the time. With some training and coaching.
Right.
As long as the technician or contractor, presents the pricing, we build value. Another tip I'll give you is you want to build value up top. You start with the top option, not the bottom option, because you want the customer to know this is the very best that I can offer you, and this is the price of it. And then you take away as you go down, instead of saying, hey, here's the price, and then trying to add on top of that. Always start with your top option. And
then go downwards. Yeah. Well, it makes sense, because if you're telling me this is everything I could get, and then you start to take away, by the time you get to the bottom, I know my wife and I would look at it and go, well, we don't really want the bottom option.
Right.
And at the same time, if I'm going to get competitive quotes, and let's use that number 15 grand again. Well, I'm comparing you to this other company, and you both came in at 15 grand, but then you had an 18 and a $25,000 option.
Right.
I would say, well, Danielle's company is, par for the other company, but they didn't give us options. So let's go with Danielle's company at, at par or at 18 or 25.
Sure. Right. We see that happen every day. Well,
love it. So that's a very powerful takeaway. So a couple of big, juicy pieces of management advice and guidance. Today they call them hacks, business hacks. That's what you're doing.
I like it.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do so?
Thanks for asking. My email address is Danielle@menupricing.com, or our website, thenewflatrate.com. I also want to put a plug out there for a group I'm a part of, and it may not be applicable to everybody, but it's called Women in HVACR, and we're just trying to bring more women into the trades. So we have scholarship and mentorship programs and education programs, because there's not a lot of women in the skilled trades, and we believe that there's a place for them, whether they're in the office or in the field, whether they're estimators, maybe they're just CSRs, customers service representatives, accountants, but there's definitely a place for them. And so that's what our group does. I think it's important for women to know that we want you in our industries too.
Excellent. I just had a very in-depth conversation with a hardwood supplier who wants that as a topic. It's their theme this year, women in cabinetry trades.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I didn't talk to him about this, but they weren't talking about it in the administrative, like, you know, the office, the accountant or bookkeeper or sales rep level. They were talking about it more on the floor. But I wonder if that's the first extension, is to, you know, get that groundswell.
Right. Well, I think that's great. I wish him well. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for your time. You know, you and I are both business owners, so talking to other business owners is easy for us, but you've got some excellent points here that I hope my listeners take away and put in place. So thank you.
I'm very flattered and honored to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the time. I love what you're doing too. I think it's just great.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Goodbye.
Bye.